City leaders still split on the mayor's controversial Conduit deal. New tonight, the big check from BGE that the city cashed in despite of legal questions. Residents gather after a 16-year-old is killed near his school.
I do not want the community to be in fear.
How they're calling for change to save their community.
We're facing every single person in Baltimore City being opposed to doing anything about violent crime.
Former Governor Larry Hogan reflects on his term in a Fox 45 News one-on-one sit-down. Why he says the General Assembly is out of touch with the community's fight on crime. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson can now negotiate with other teams. Why that does not mean he's gone. Giving power back to the people.
We can bring that accountability through big changes.
How the group Peace is fighting city leaders to put decisions back in your hands.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Another chapter in Baltimore's controversial Conduit saga as the city's law department defends the legality of a contract with BGE.
But some members of the Baltimore City Council are pushing back, saying the Board of Estimates didn't follow proper protocol when approving that deal.
No final decisions yet, but that is not stopping the city from proceeding with the agreement. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live to explain what happened tonight. Rebecca?
Mary and Kai, that 8-figure deal kicks off with a $14 million payment from BG&E. And tonight we're learning the city already has that money in the bank and they're getting ready to spend it.
The city's controversial Conduit deal with Baltimore Gas and Electric once again up for debate.
It's a huge win for the city.
It's a bad deal for the city.
Tuesday night, Baltimore City's council members demanding answers from the city's finance and law department, questioning the merit of the multi-million-dollar deal pushed through by Mayor Brandon Scott. The city's solicitor saying one thing.
There is no question on the legality on this solicitor's side. This is a done deal. We're acting on the deal. It's done.
City council members saying another.
The council, as well as the comptroller, have been very clear on, what our position is with respect to that. That meeting never happened, and a deal was not executed.
Last month, the mayor and two of his appointees moving forward with a vote on the deal, despite comptroller Bill Henry and council president Nick Mosby boycotting the meeting.
We believe we are right, and he is wrong.
Henry and Mosby calling the contract null and void, saying the mayor defied city law by pushing it through in their absence.
The way that this entire situation has been handled is nothing more than a power grab and move that suits the interests of private industry.
What we're missing here is a judge. I think we've reached the point where it's clear that we just have to agree to disagree.
Henry and Mosby now asking Attorney General Anthony Brown to intervene. His office telling Fox 45 they're, quote, waiting for an analysis by the city solicitor before we proceed with the opinion. Despite the uncertainty and backlash, the city still deciding to move forward with the agreement. On Tuesday, the city cashing a check signed by BG&E for $14 million.
Yeah, when they receive checks, they deposit it right away.
So what happens if it's determined that there's not actually an agreement in place?
We're confident that it is.
Now, contrary to what the AG's office is saying, the city solicitor is telling me that the AG has not requested her opinion on this issue. She says once he does, she will gladly send it to him. I've since followed up again with the AG's office asking for clarification on how this miscommunication might have happened. As of News Time tonight, I have not heard back. Reporting live outside of City Hall, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, the Baltimore Brew is reporting in the contract with BGE, the city is not requiring the company to adhere to city rules that dictate how many minority and women contractors BGE has to use. The Brew says BGE agreed to only, quote, make every good faith effort to equitably utilize the services of minority and women-owned businesses. That's something the NAACP has raised concerns about before.
In the last few years, I have come to realize that BGE is the last company that the city council or our mayor should blindly trust to make a good faith effort to equitably utilize minority contractors. I've learned that BGE has a company-wide and systemic pattern and practice of discriminating against black utility workers.
The NAACP isn't the only organization or group speaking out about the Conduit deal. We've heard several community members voice their opinions as well, including former Mayor Jack Young.
The mayor, in my opinion, is wrong. Who is he working for, the citizens of Baltimore or BG&E?
Former Mayor Jack Young isn't the only one who questioned the mayor and who he's working for when it comes to the deal. Fox 45 News also pressed the mayor on it.
Do you have anything to gain personally from this contract?
Mackenzie, that's the most disrespectful questions you've ever asked me. No, I don't have anything personal to gain. I do what's right for Baltimore, not what's right for me.
Fox 45 News also asked viewers who you believe the mayor is acting on behalf of when it comes to the Conduit deal. 82% of those who voted said himself.
Well, the Baltimore City Board of Estimates is made up of the mayor himself as well as two of his appointees, the Department of Public Works Director and the city solicitor. Only two members are elected, the city council president and the comptroller. The deal is set to be back on the board's agenda next month. Now, the mayor has approved the deal on February 15th in time for BGE to include the capital improvements in their rate hike to the Public Service Commission. It's calling to increase the average customer's monthly bill a little more than $10 each month for each year of the three-year proposal. The PSC could reject that request. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think the BGE Conduit plan needs to be put on hold? So far, 77% of people who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Now, tonight's hearing isn't the only one City Council will hold this week. On Thursday, the Legislative Oversight Committee will hold two hearings, one on the newly announced Clean Core program, the other on the appointment of Faith Leach as city administrator. You can find more on both of these issues on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Fox 45 News is learning more about the Patterson High School student shot and killed in a park next to his school yesterday. He is the sixth Baltimore City Public School student killed this year. Today, community members gathered at that park where he died to remember him and called for change.
And continue, Lord, to watch over our neighborhood, to watch over the children.
Residents gather in Joseph Lee Park in Southeast Baltimore.
Just begin to think about the life and the future of that life that's now gone.
The people here are determined to save their community.
And how are we not taught conflict resolution skills anymore?
Right, exactly. And so that's something that I was talking with the principal.
I do not want the community to be in fear.
And save their children.
These are our kids, and they are our future.
Baltimore police say on Monday, 16-year-old Isaiah Carter, a Patterson High School student, was shot and killed in the park next to his school. The crime tape still waving in the wind where the shooting happened. Police say it's here, near this bench, where Carter lost his life.
The bench, to me, just really almost felt like a cemetery.
Police haven't said what led to the shooting, but those here are afraid for young people and for themselves.
All day long, inside the park and around the community, all day long. And we call the school, we call the police department, there's nothing has been done about it.
Carter is the most recent teen who's fallen victim to gun violence in Baltimore.
It's very easy to lose track of how many young people's lives we've lost already. Deja Garrison was 17 years old. Andres Moreno was 16-year-old. Lauren Henderson was 15 years old. And Dante and now the young Mr. Carter were both 16 years old.
Former state and federal prosecutor Thuruvik Naraja joined residents. He's calling on city leaders to do more to stop the violence.
City's leadership needs to understand that this is a grim cycle, that if nothing wakes them up, if the violence of the last 8 years has not done enough to wake them up, this surely has to.
I would like them to participate, to get involved with the community, to see what really happened in the community because they're out of touch.
In a statement last night, Mayor Brandon Scott wrote, quote, "As your mayor, I'm taking immediate actions to address youth violence in our city." Yet the mayor didn't list what those immediate actions are. So Fox 45 News sent questions to his office asking what immediate actions are being taken to address youth violence and what will families notice right away from these actions. City school leaders are speaking out as well. CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises says they're doing what they can to keep students safe and in school buildings, but admits they can't control everything.
Those of us who have worked with adolescents over long periods of time know that when young people want to find a way out, right? We cannot have our eyes in every place at the same time.
Some residents aren't convinced.
They say they have cameras. Well, they need to have people at the doors, and they need to have old school attendants.
And as Patterson High School gets ready to reopen Wednesday, they're focused on healing.
There's hard issues, and we have a hard time talking about it. But it's time to start talking about it.
Fox 45 News has not heard back from the mayor's office about our questions at this time. As for the investigation, no suspect information has been released from police, but authorities are offering an $8,000 reward for any information in the case.
The activist group Peace also responding to yesterday's shooting, demanding leaders take accountability for the violence.
I'm sure most of us are still reeling from yet another death of yet another young person in Baltimore City. But I have to remind you that what's going on right now in our city is a symptom of some of the policies that we have seen over the last 8 years.
The violence is not the only thing that group is demanding accountability for. Coming up at 10:30, what they're doing about some of the biggest issues facing Baltimore City and the action they are looking to take.
No deal, and not really a surprise, as the Baltimore Ravens place that franchise tag on star quarterback Lamar Jackson.
Morgan Atzik joins us now. Morgan, this definitely was expected, but there's still a lot of uncertainty surrounding Lamar's future in Baltimore.
And it's going to play out for months, if not another year. Sorry, guys. The Ravens using the franchise tag on Lamar Jackson and right up to the tag deadline was expected after 2 off seasons of failed negotiations with Jackson, who represents himself to reach that long-term deal. The Ravens did make this tag incredibly interesting. They went the cheaper route with the non-exclusive franchise tag. This means the Ravens keep Jackson from becoming a free agent next week when the new league year opens on March 15th. But other teams can begin talks with Jackson to try to land him starting Monday. The Ravens would then have a chance to match that offer sheet or let Jackson go and receive 2 first-round draft picks. The non-exclusive tag is projected to be just north of $32 million. If no offer takes Jackson away, he could play under the tag this upcoming season, but he's got to sign it and doesn't have to report at all this summer. He could even sit out this upcoming season, which seems unlikely. Jackson wouldn't be paid. The Ravens announced the tag with a statement from GM Eric DeCosta. It reads, having not yet reached a long-term deal with Lamar Jackson, we will use the franchise tag. There have been many instances across the league and in Baltimore when a player has been designated with the franchise tag and signed a long-term deal that same year. We will continue to negotiate in good faith with Lamar, and we are hopeful that we can strike a long-term deal that is fair to both Lamar and the Ravens. Our ultimate goal is to build a championship team with Lamar Jackson leading the way for many years to come. Both sides have until July 17th to reach that long-term deal. If not, it's a tag. But also before that, the Ravens could trade him. They have to make some moves, though, before anything happens with Lamar. Cuts, restructures by Wednesday for cap space to cover Jackson's $32 million that he's owed this season.
Bit of a chill on the way overnight. We've got temperatures in the 40s under mainly clear skies, even some 30s around Westminster. The breezes, they've been up today, up to 40 miles an hour at times, still 15 to 25 with gusts to 40 there down at Annapolis, 25 mile an hour or so gusts here in Baltimore, and 32 as you head onto the eastern shore. And that's going to add into a wind chill overnight into early tomorrow morning. Temperatures settling into the low 30s, maybe some upper 20s, feeling potentially more like about 20 degrees by about 7 a.m. when you're heading into work and school, so make sure you're nice and bundled up. I'm going to let you know if this cold air could lead to some snow. There's a potential on some computer models. I'm going to let you know how much, when, where, what those computer models are saying. It's all in my Weather Authority forecast in a couple of minutes.
Still to come, former Governor Larry Hogan sitting down with Fox 45 News, why he says lawmakers in Annapolis are out of touch with residents who simply want change when it comes to fighting crime. And Fox 45 News continues to press Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski on his crime-fighting strategy as the killer of a young teen remains on the run. Plus, New York's mayor now asking people to take masks off when they enter businesses, why he says leaving it on reduces public safety.
In Baltimore City, fatal and non-fatal shootings are down compared to this time last year, but they are on pace for 2021.
And that means the city could see more than 300 lives lost to violence for a 9th year in a row. And Baltimore isn't the only place seeing violent crime.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost sat down with Maryland's former governor as the General Assembly debates legislation targeting violent crime.
Larry Hogan says the General Assembly is out of touch with what community members want in terms of crime plans. Before leaving office, Hogan told me one of his biggest regrets was not getting that Violent Firearms Offender Act passed and on his desk to sign. Right now, it's not clear if there will be any more luck this year. Out of office and opening up about what's happening inside the State House, especially when it comes to anti-crime legislation. The Republican caucus carrying the torch forward for former Governor Larry Hogan on the Violent Firearms Offender Act. It seeks to implement tougher penalties for gun offenders, especially repeat offenders. Didn't clear the House while you were in office. Do you think that they're barking up the wrong tree with this bill that didn't see success in the past, or do you think it's worth it?
No, I think it's absolutely worth it. I think it's one of the most important things we can possibly do, which is why we pushed for it every year. Things have changed a little bit since then.
Hogan says that change
the Office of State's Attorney of Baltimore City
is City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, who campaigned on getting tougher on crime.
The General Assembly is just so far out of touch with their constituents. Ivan Bates at least is a state's attorney in Baltimore who says, yes, this is a problem we want to tackle.
Bates's bill faces an uphill road to pass right now with some criticism and concern about more people in jail. Despite Bates arguing his plan is needed to get a handle on gun violence gripping Baltimore and other cities. Hogan used his position in the State House to urge lawmakers to pass his plans, but those efforts unsuccessful. When you were in office, do you remember any piece of legislation that cleared both chambers and made it to your desk that implemented tougher penalties for violent offenders?
Well, the Violent Offenders Act did not pass, but we did pass some better crime bills where we passed RICO statutes that enabled us to help take down criminal gang enterprises. We're facing every single person in Baltimore City being opposed to doing anything about violent crime.
Now, some Democrats say they are open to looking at certain crime bills.
Good morning, everyone.
We pressed Senate President Bill Ferguson just last week, a Democrat from Baltimore City, on if his chamber will get on board with the GOP-backed Violent Firearm Offender Act, too. So is there appetite for that bill?
I think it's in consideration, something that I support. I think we're having conversations across both chambers about what might be feasible. There's a lot more work that has to go to make sure that we have real safe communities.
Not a clear yes or no from the Senate leader. While Hogan has plenty of time now that he's out of office, lawmakers are running up against the clock to get crime bills done before the end of session on April 10th. The former governor also faces some criticism from lawmakers right now in Annapolis who say Hogan let staffing levels drop to unacceptable levels, especially when looking at parole and probation staffing. I asked the former governor about that, and he says he stands by the staffing numbers, noting he believes smaller government for Maryland is best. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
There will be a hearing on the Violent Firearms Offender Act on Thursday. Now, the plan passed the Maryland Senate the past 2 years, but it stalled in the House. Fox 45 News will keep a close eye on that hearing, and we'll keep you updated on what comes next. Last week, we questioned lawmakers on why they think this year would be different. You can find their answers on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, Governor Hogan also weighed in on the Boost program. The former governor created the scholarship program. It gives funding to low-income families to send their children to private or parochial schools. The budget proposal from Governor Wes Moore is calling to cut $2 million from the $10 million program. Hogan says the program helps families who would otherwise send their children to sometimes consistently failing schools. He says Maryland has the money to fund it.
We're now doing $4.9 billion a year more into the public schools. This is a tiny drop in the bucket. I think we should put way more money into it rather than cutting the money. I'm glad to hear that Senate President Ferguson also says he doesn't want to cut the funding. I think it's a mistake.
Should it be codified?
I think it should.
Boost budget is $10 million, a fraction of the state's budget for public education. Many lawmakers, including Senate President Bill Ferguson, say they want to see the program funded.
The $10 billion Boost budget is just 0.1% of Maryland's $8.8 billion public school budget.
And, this is a program that I personally have evolved on as I've seen families and young people really have incredible benefits. And in comparison to the, $7.5 billion of state dollars, $8.5 billion if you include federal dollars, $8.5 billion to $10 million. it's a small differential.
And Fox 45 News has heard from students and mentors who have benefited from the Boost program as well. They're encouraging lawmakers to keep it alive.
And when we have so many low-income families who are struggling, why should they be limited in their options?
I want to tell everybody needs an opportunity. Man would never.
I'm so blessed and glad that I have a Boost scholarship. Without that, I don't know where I would be, what school I would be at right now.
Well, some have questioned whether Governor Moore is cutting funding from Boost because of influence from the teachers union in Maryland. Fox 45 News questioned the governor about that last week.
The decisions that I make are my decisions, and no one is behind those decisions.
Now, lawmakers can shift money around in the budget after the governor makes a proposal. Republicans say they are prepared to do that to fully fund Boost.
Well, you felt the chill in the air today, and it stays maybe only in the 40s for tomorrow. But take a look at what the weather computer models are putting out, the long-range models. Into the end of the week, of course, there's a little touch-and-go accuracy on these. But you take a look here Friday afternoon, Friday night into Saturday morning. European computer model on the left, the blue, that's snow. And even our GFS, or American computer model on the right, calling for some snow in there. European, maybe in excess of 3 inches north and west. But again, it is that March sun angle we're battling. I'm going to let you know what my thoughts are on it coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Taking a look right now at the Fox box on the top left, controversy over the Massachusetts state seal, which contains a Native American standing below a white arm. Some residents argue it's racist, and they're asking for the seal to change.
Top right, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is encouraging customers to take their masks off when entering stores, part of an effort to help law enforcement identify criminals more easily.
Bottom left, chaos on a United Airlines flight landing in Boston as police say a man started berating passengers and crew. He allegedly threatened, he's seen on camera threatening to kill everyone on the plane and flashed something sharp at a passenger, which later turned out to be a broken spoon with a jagged edge. Police charge him with interfering with flight crew members. He faces life in prison.
Bottom right, California Governor Gavin Newsom says the state will no longer do business with Walgreens after the pharmacy chain opted to take abortion pills off its shelves in more than 20 states. Walgreens made the move after pressure from Republican attorneys general in those states. Well, ahead at 10:30, from an emergency flight to shock trauma on life support 1 month ago, to a salute and hugs this afternoon. The remarkable recovery for an officer injured during that Cockeysville standoff.
A Chesapeake cleanup to help save Maryland's dwindling crab and oyster population. How crews tracked down debris in Baltimore County and what it could mean for Bay life. We're following two big stories at 10:30 as crime concerns continue to circulate in Baltimore and around the state of Maryland. In Baltimore County, a string of violence in the first 3 months of the year is prompting county leaders to double down on safety measures.
Plus, here in Baltimore, the group Peace says accountability needs to come from City Hall as a 16-year-old is shot and killed just steps from his school. Peace worked to put term limits for elected leaders on the ballot in November, and now they're proposing a new motion to bring more power to the people.
FOX45 Shannon Lilly reports from City Hall, where the group says they're working to make your voice heard.
Yeah, in a press conference here at City Hall today, the group Peace says they have personally seen the change that people in the community are wanting and needing, and they are here to bring forth that change and give the power back to the people.
Our work is really just getting started.
A grassroots organization delving into the corruption of Baltimore City.
I'm sure most of us are still reeling from yet another death of yet another young person in Baltimore City. But I have to remind you that what's going on right now in our city is a symptom of some of the policies that we have seen over the last 8 years.
The People for Elected Accountability and Civic Engagement holding this press conference Tuesday morning following their first in a series of town hall meetings last month. It was there at Concord Baptist Church that Peace's newest spokesperson, Eurypsy Morgan, says they saw a community neglected.
The nature of the things that they were asking for was outrageous. Speed bumps. Think about that. A stop sign in your community. What they're asking for are basic quality of life issues. And that's what politicians are ignoring. That's why peace exists, so that we can bring that accountability through big changes.
Those big changes, they say, will be driven by you.
We are going to continue to hold these press conferences. We're going to continue to hold town halls.
Those town halls across all 14 districts in Baltimore, working to find out which issues matter most. Meanwhile,
mistakes are made, but we should not have to wait 4 years to correct a mistake.
The group also working on a possible recall charter amendment regarding city officials that, if able to garner enough signatures, could be on your ballot come November. The recall would make it possible to boot out a politician before the end of their term.
Given the nature of crime and violence and the lack of accountability in Baltimore, maybe it shouldn't be 4 years. Maybe there should be a mechanism by which residents of Baltimore City can recall politicians who are ignoring them.
Now, this is the same group that worked to place question K on your ballot back in November. You, the voters, approved it, creating term limits for elected officials. Reporting from City Hall, I'm Shannon Lilly, Fox 45 News.
The group Peace will be holding its next town hall March 14th in the 3rd District of Baltimore at Jerusalem Evangelical Lutheran Church, beginning at 6:30 in the evening.
A Frederick County teen arrested on 6 charges after police say he assaulted a store owner and customer. He also allegedly flashed this gun at a store owner. One officer says he recognized the 13-year-old from a previous case. Police found a BB gun when they searched the teen. The charges include armed robbery, first and second-degree assault, and destruction of property.
Aberdeen mother Kelly Sadik faces second-degree assault charges after police say that she went into her daughter's 7th grade classroom to confront a student about harassing her daughter. Police say the verbal argument led to Sadik grabbing the 7th grader's arm as they attempted to walk away, injuring the child. She also faces trespassing charges since she didn't formally sign in at the front office.
Powerful moments outside the University of Maryland Rehabilitation Hospital this afternoon as Detective Jonathan G. was released. He had been receiving medical care for a month after he was shot multiple times during a Cockeysville standoff. 24-year-old David Linthicum has been arrested and charged with shooting Detective G.
The manhunt is just one of a number of recent crimes involving young people as Baltimore County leaders continue to promise stronger safety measures. And there is increased police presence right now in Towson after a 17-year-old was shot and killed 2 weeks ago near Towson Circle. Fox 45's Olivia Dan spoke to County Executive Johnny Olszewski about his crime-fighting strategy.
Within weeks, several violent incidents in Towson have residents on edge.
It's like nerve-wracking to feel like, is that day ever going to come where he doesn't make it back to his apartment from school or make it to school?
Shelley Maxwell's son goes to Towson, and the recent crime has her concerned for his safety. At the start of February, 3 people were raped at gunpoint off of Towson Circle. And then on Super Bowl Sunday, there was a shooting near Chesapeake and Washington Avenues. And less than 2 weeks ago, a 17-year-old was shot and killed right near the mall.
They need more police down this way and instead of other ways, because they ain't got a lot down here. You see a lot of people doing a lot of things down here they shouldn't be doing.
Towson residents like Pamela Collins want Baltimore County leaders to step up, and County Executive Johnny Olszewski is promising to increase safety measures.
It's one of my most important jobs. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that we, again, both are safe and that people feel safe in their neighborhoods and their communities.
Tell us about what you're doing differently than you were, say, 2 weeks ago that's proactive in preventing crime.
So, I would first say it was a swift and it was a strong response. We did step up our patrols, both on foot. We're looking at bike patrols, more cameras, more lights, additional license plate readers. So we are really taking proactive measures.
Olszewski says the county takes crime seriously.
I think people need to be held accountable. We know in the instance of one of the violent crimes in Towson, there was an individual who was only sentenced to a few days by an Anne Arundel County judge.
He's referring to Quancy Davis, the man responsible for raping 3 people at gunpoint in Towson last month. According to police, Davis was prohibited from even being able to possess a firearm after being arrested in 2021 in Anne Arundel County. Right now in Annapolis, proactive steps are being taken to prevent crimes like this, as some Republican-backed bills are aiming to make gun theft a felony and increase penalties for repeat gun offenders.
The legislation, like the two things I just mentioned that we're seeing right now in Annapolis, that seems to be taking proactive steps when it comes to gun offenses, that it's safe to say that you do support that?
We support proactive measures to keep our community safe. I don't know that we've weighed in specifically on those pieces of legislation, but we support legislators taking action to make sure our communities are safe.
Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Absolute tragic developments in the case of 4 Americans kidnapped in Mexico.
2 of them were found dead. Another is wounded, while the 4th is unharmed. Shortly after entering Mexico, the 4 travelers from South Carolina were caught in a cartel shootout. Video showed them being loaded into a pickup truck by gunmen. It's believed to be a case of mistaken identity. One of the surviving victims is flying back to South Carolina tonight after several days in a Texas hospital. Her mother spoke to our sister station about the emotional damage taken on the family.
She was crying because she didn't say, I asked her how she doing. She was doing okay, but she was crying because her brother got killed. She watched him die. Yeah, she watched 2 of them die. They died in front of her.
Mexico's president says 1 person is in custody. Texas lawmaker Vicente Gonzalez represents the area just across the border from the kidnapping. He says cartel activity needs to be investigated as a matter of national security.
Newly released video from inside the U.S. Capitol on January 6th provides context to the events unfolding that day in Washington. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the video and reaction from lawmakers.
The dramatic images from January 6, 2021 seared into our memories. But a different spin emerging after Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last month released all of the Capitol security footage of that day to Fox News.
Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol.
Full Measure's Cheryl Atkinson spoke with one protester, later arrested by the FBI, who insists many at the Capitol that day were not violent.
People were coming out of the building saying the police are letting us in. You can go in, you can just walk around, everybody's taking videos.
Evans' account similar to video that shows how Capitol Police interacted with the infamous QAnon shaman.
The Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides.
Republican senators disagreeing with the picture Carlson painted.
I think it's bullshit. I was here. I was down there. When you see police barricades breached, when you see police officers assaulted, if you were just a tourist, you should have probably lined up at the visitor center and came in on an orderly basis.
Another acknowledging it wasn't the insurrection depicted by the January 6th committee, made up of Democrats and 2 anti-Trump Republicans, and which hired a veteran television producer to shape their narrative.
My recollection of the day is that it was not just some rowdy, peaceful protest of Boy Scouts, nor was it, the takedown of democracy that others, on the extreme side want to call it.
Both the January 6th committee and Tucker Carlson are biased, but the January 6th committee claimed not to be biased. January 6th had something to it. It just didn't have anything to it to the extent to which the January 6th committee alleged.
Senator Kramer from North Dakota says he supports making all 40,000 hours of surveillance video from in and around the Capitol on January 6th public so Americans can decide for themselves. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
And CNN obtained an internal memo from Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger, highly critical of the Fox News segment, saying the program cherry-picked from the footage and described the commentary as, quote, offensive and misleading.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust the findings of the January 6th committee? So far, 53% of the voters say yes. Polls just opened. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the polls tab to weigh in.
The Federal Reserve Chair testifies on Capitol Hill. His economic predictions as senators question him on inflation.
And still ahead on the late edition of Fire Guts, a Bel Air garage. The homeowner lucky to escape without injury. What he did to try and prevent that fire from spreading tonight at 11.
And it looks like our temperature trend's going to be mainly below average the next few days. 49 for tomorrow, up right at average on Thursday. And look at those temperatures in the 40s for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll let you know if rain and or snow is in your future. Coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.